Hello and welcome back to the Cricket Draft Show. When we are with sadness this week because it is the last week that we'll be talking about domestic English cricket in 2025. My name is Dan Jadzovic. I'm joined by Dan Weston. Subscribe to the channel, please, because we're trying to get 1,000 subscribers. And if you're enjoying this content, it just makes us feel a bit warm and fuzzy inside to know that you guys are enjoying what we're putting out. So that would be massively helpful, and there's more content coming through the winter too. But Dan, how are you? And are you glad that this summer is over?
I'm well, mate. Thank you. But yeah, mixed feelings, I suppose. I'm sure I'll be missing the county grind in a few days' time. But at the moment, probably do feel that it's been a long 6 months or so, hasn't it? And for everyone working in cricket, I think probably, and TCD players no different, obviously, with the plethora of competitions that they could have played throughout the season, and maybe it's now time to have a little bit of a break before you dust off your spreadsheets for the next tournament.
Yeah, you give yourself, what do the pros do? Give themselves 6 weeks off, don't they, from now? About 6 weeks to go on holiday, and then that kind of pre-season grind starts. So those spreadsheets maybe start coming back out November time. Just start working away. I know you're already thinking about yours for next year, Dan, because well, it was a mixed bag between us two this year. But before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to the sponsor of this week's episode. It's Neon Cricket again. If you're looking to stand out from the crowd on the cricket field, then jump on their website. The link is in the description of this video. And you can check out their amazing bat range and loads of other great kit. Right, firstly, promotion, relegation, Division 1, Division 2. We'll rattle that through quickly. Congratulations to Nottinghamshire. They've won the county championship for the first time since 2010. I believe it was 2010 that they last lifted it. They beat Surrey the week before and then went on to beat Warwickshire. Surrey finishing in second place, and the two teams going down. One narrowly avoiding the drop in Durham with that quite famous defeat up at Leeds at the end of the week. Are Durham and Worcestershire, whose fate was confirmed a few weeks ago, are down into Division 2. And the teams leaving Division 2 to join Division 1 for the first time in a long time will be the Leicestershire Foxes and also Glamorgan. So, Dan, how are you thinking about that? So for me, it's a huge shock that Durham have been relegated.
Well, it is and it isn't. So I think we spoke about it last week that Durham Yorkshire game was probably going to be the one that decided it, and so it proved eventually after a ton of drama. I mean, almost as much drama as the Ryder Cup last night. Hampshire looked like they were dead and buried when James Fuller got given out against Surrey. Rahul Chahar with his one game overseas stint was magnificent, and then suddenly Durham collapsed in what felt like about an hour. To probably give us the most dramatic ending in a relegation battle in Division 1 since Warwickshire to, I think, 10 wickets in about 2 hours a few years back to avoid relegation. Oliver Hannon-Dalby, I believe, was the hero that day. So it's been a fantastic piece of drama. Congratulations to Notts for winning the title, and I'm delighted for the guys I know there as well. It feels like they've been there or thereabouts the whole season, and it seems really well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely right. And then Leicestershire as well, making their way up to Division 1. Fantastic achievement. How do you think they're going to go? I think they've recruited pretty well already ahead of the 2026 summer.
They've got Maharajan, which is going to be a banker spinner in Div 1, which is possibly a good insight into how they might approach Division 1 in terms of the pitches that they prepare on, or what they're anticipating the pitches are going to be like. And I think Division 1 and Division 2 are two different ball games in terms of your approach. Like Div 2, because you can't get relegated and there's 2 spots out of 8 for promotion, you're better off going for wins. Whereas in Div 1, usually 150 points is like the magic 38-point mark in football. And you can probably achieve that by drawing a lot of matches. So their approach of stacking their batting, and they often have, someone like Tom Scriven at number 10, when he's probably more like a 7 or an 8 for most teams, probably would help them in that respect as well, drawing out matches longer. I think it's going to be tough. It always is tough for the promoted teams, but it'd be great to see them do well.
Yeah, absolutely right, and you nailed it. The batting lineup for Leicestershire often is quite frankly ridiculous. There is no tail. Let's have another look back, and we'll just go through the dream team of the cricket draft for 2025. We'll stop at a few different players. There'll be players that you and I have had throughout the course of the year, ones that we've probably missed out on. But the three batters, Dan, I'll get your thoughts on these, are Dan Lawrence, Ben Compton, and Wayne Madsen.
Yeah, so Lawrence with the second skill set, which was beneficial for him. He definitely contributed with the ball and possibly wouldn't have had enough points to get in the dream team if it was batting alone. So shows you the value of those potentially miscategorised players. Whereas, Compton and Madsen are run churners and consistently do the business. Compton potentially benefited a little bit from the drop down to Div 2 with slightly easier bowling attacks to face, but again is just a consummate county grinder who churns out runs consistently.
Yeah, absolutely right. Wayne Madsen was a bit of a kind of a stalwart in my team really for the second half of the season. I didn't start with him, but certainly finished with him, and that double 100 down at Kent at the end of the year was quite helpful to get myself a few extra points. The all-rounders, now, these are your magic picks, aren't they? These are the ones that you're desperate to get right. And if I'd have told you these four cricketers before the start of the year, Dan, I don't know whether you'd have believed me or not, but it's Lewis Rees with 2,439 points, Saif Zaid with the most of just shy of 2,600, James Coles down at Sussex, and then George Hill as well.
Yeah, so four players with pretty high match involvement generally. Zaid with the most, and his batting has just gone to a whole new level this season. It's been so impressive. Lewis Rees really is the epitome of high match involvement, being open in the batting and open in the bowling in a lot of matches. So again, someone who's done really, really well through the season. And then obviously two younger players, Coles and Hill, friends of the show, and good to see them in the dream team as well.
Yeah, friends of the team as well, Dan, most importantly. John Simpson takes the gloves down at Sussex. He had another incredible year with bat in hand. And then the three bowlers. Now, these ones are interesting, genuinely interesting. Calvin Harrison makes the dream team. Tom Taylor makes the dream team, and Kyle Abbott. Now, Kyle Abbott, that's absolutely fine, right? He has an increased match involvement with the way he goes about scoring his runs. Tom Taylor as well, I think he categorises probably closer to an all-rounder than he does a bowler, but relegated with Worcestershire early on in this summer. And then Calvin Harrison, who played, I believe, one game for Nottinghamshire this year. The rest were on loan at Northants. And he's made the dream team by missing a handful of games.
Yeah, again shows the value of players. These three players show the value of bowlers who bat, particularly the likes of Tom Taylor as well, who probably is maybe like a number 8 generally categorised as a bowler. Kyle Abbott, 38 years old, but doing what he does year in, year out, and has been probably a major part of Hampshire's eventual staying up. And Harrison, I mean, will he get in the Notts team next year? That's the question. Or will your boys at the Steelbacks be able to swoop for a more permanent signing?
Who knows? How about the bench as well? Ed Barnard, Ben Rain, Ian Holland, and Jack Leach round out the bench. And Dan, I reckon you've probably already read this email, but the value of that team, those 15 players, £110 million budget, haven't we? £100 million budget, to build the squad. How much would that have cost you?
107. So
107.2 million.
Yeah, that's the issue. Obviously, you've got to make compromises when you're building your team. Potentially, you might have had to go for some cheaper bench options there if you wanted that 11 in the dream team. But the players on the bench are just the guys who are going to have good county seasons. All established TCD players, and generally there is that theme of veteran and established county grinders with a couple of young prospects who were good value, basically, over this sort of starting 11 and bench.
Yeah, absolutely right. But hey, if you had to find yourself 7.3 million or 7.2 million to get yourself under budget and still come away with that team, that would have been a phenomenal Phenomenal year. Top 3 overall, Kyle Abbott, we've spoken about him, just shy of 2,500 points. He was top of the tree, wasn't he, when he joined our show? George Hill, he was top of the tree when he joined our show as well. He finished just over 2,500 points in second place. And Safe Zabe, who crucially hasn't joined the show for an interview, went on to lead the MVP this year with 2,593 points. So as much as don't not come on the show, Dan, but that seems to be a contributing factor here as to what's going on and how Safe has kind of got himself to the top of the tree.
I'm not sure what it says about players coming on the show, but obviously all three of them have had fantastic seasons, and hopefully that doesn't put the hex on more players coming to the show next season. Fingers
crossed. And how about some stats as well, Dan, that you might have missed? But Kyle Abbott was the most selected player with 39.8% in the sides. Have you forgiven him yet for your double captain debacle?
Oh no, because he's been really good for me apart from that, and generally, Kyle Abbott and me will remain firm friends in terms of the TCD TCD selection.
Brilliant. Lewis Rees had the most points per game with 221.73. Safe Zabe, the leading run scorer, with 1,425. Grant Stewart hit the most sixes with 26, and Emilio Gay the most ducks with 5. Then Sol Budinger, minimum of 500 runs, the highest strike rate in the championship with 88.4. Tom Taylor, we've spoken about him, 58 wickets for Worcestershire in Division 1. If we look ahead to Division 2, Dan, that's got to be a promising kind of option to think about a Div 2 bowler for next year.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be really interesting to see his pricing. Sometimes I feel like that people don't make enough of the difference in standard between the two divisions. So 58 wicket taker in Div 1 around about peak age probably, should be able to bully Div 2 quite significantly. But let's see.
Yeah, Kyle Abbott had the most maidens, 134. Ben Green, the most economical bowler with at least 20 wickets of 2.31. Most catches was Gareth Roderick. Most stumpings, James Bracey. And then outfield catches, Keaton Jennings. So Jennings would have been another good player to have had as one of those batters, wouldn't he? You wouldn't have saved much money from your £107 million dream team, mind you, but he would have given you that extra bonus.
Yeah, I think sometimes those players can be the difference between a few positions, getting players who are in the thick of the game. We talk about match involvement a lot, but usually that's batting versus bowling. But we're talking about fielding potentially, and as an outfielder here as well. Yeah, and enough. And it's so interesting to see Kyle Abbott with 134 maidens, because it just goes to show you, actually, you can categorise players in the consistency of their performances. And Kyle Abbott's 134 maidens ensured that he was a regular points taker throughout the tournament run, regardless of whether he took wickets or not. And I think that's probably an underrated facet of the TCD in terms of funding players who are consistent performers and understanding the reasons why they're consistent performers.
Excellent point. That's why you get paid the big bucks, Dan. Finally as well, we've just got some, I was going to call them awards, but that feels like a slight oversell. We've got some individual picks, Dan. We've got 5 of them to go through. We've got young player, overseas, most undervalued, breakout, and player of the competition. We'll go through one by one, Dan, but I'll invite you to share your young player of the cricket draft for 2025 first.
For me, it has to be George Hill, because he's someone that, well, obviously came second in the overall standings, but also because of the value that he provided in terms of cost and the points per million that he managed to generate, but also because for me, it was one of the highlights of my squad was George Hill, having adopted him early in the season as clearly a player that I wanted to integrate into my squad, and was a stalwart throughout subsequently. Never once sold or dropped. For me, it was a fantastic season for George Hill, and I'm really pleased that I managed to find that early and jump on the bandwagon before everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely right. Phenomenal, and I kind of felt like I had a feeling you'd go for George Hill. I've gone for Glamorgan's Ben Kellaway, a bit further down the pecking order, quite cheap, well, very cheap to be fair, at 4.8 million, but scored hundreds this year, taken wickets. There is a bit of a novelty factor involved there with the left and right arm release points for Kellaway, but it's more than a novelty. It's better than a novelty. He's going to be somebody interesting to look at, I think, going into 25. Not only, I dare say, he won't be priced at 4.8 million, And then also there is going to be the factor of the promotion for Glamorgan to Division 1 as well. So he could be slightly less of an attractive option for players in 2026. But at 4.8 million,
maybe
very, very good value.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be more like 6.8 million next season. Probably.
I would have thought so.
Less value, yeah.
I would have thought so. How about your overseas?
I mean, there's only really one, isn't there? There's only one overseas in the top 15 in terms of the starting 11 and bench in the Dream Team. Third overall, Kyle Abbott. I don't think there's much competition there, and again, shows the value for counties of having that consistent overseas availability, I should say, throughout the comp, and rather than sort of players coming in and out for one or two games. Kyle Abbott consistently available for Hampshire and probably kept them up, in all honesty.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic shout. I had a look at Caleb Jewell, someone that dominated the batting charts for Derbyshire. Again, another one of those players that was available throughout the entirety of the year and has signed again for 2026. So I know I'll certainly be having a look at Caleb Jewell to come into the team for Derbyshire next year, depending on that price point. Again, I suspect he'll be slightly more expensive than what he was in 2025, though.
Yeah. So again, Derby potentially pushing for promotion next season as well, which I think will be a real objective for them, and Caleb Jewell is going to be a massive part of that. So yeah, I think potentially a good shout moving forward, especially with that potentially consistent availability again, which was so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep going, actually, Dan. I'm going to switch this round. Most undervalued. Now, I don't know whether 6.9 million counts as an undervalue or an overvaluation. I'm not really sure. It kind of sits as a middle ground price, but there were a host of seam bowling all-rounders that bat in the top of the order with Luke Proctor, Ian Holland, and Lewis Rees, who is going to be my most undervalued player for 2025. To go and return 221 points a game, take the new ball, field in the cordon, a bat in the top 4 often. Yes, okay, fine. It could have worked for Proctor, and it did work for Ian Holland as well, but not to the extent that it did for Lewis Rees. At 6.9 million to get that much match involvement is quite frankly outstanding.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to beat that, are you, in terms of the match involvement side of things? I went for a little bit of a different approach with the undervalued players in terms of looking at their points per million and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's been a tough one actually, because I haven't really had any of these players in my squad, but I think honourable mentions both for the two Allison brothers, Charlie and Ben, who were very, very cheap and both picked up around or more than 1,000 points over the tournament. Asa Tribe is another player that I think has featured a lot in people's squads over the season and has done really, really well in that kind of a breakout role for Glamorgan in his first probably full season, really. I think Kellaway, you mentioned as well, very, very good value in terms of almost 2,000 points at a very, very cheap price point of 4.8 million. Ethan Brooks as well as another player who has had a strong season across multiple formats as well. So there's a few there. I just haven't had any of them in my team.
Fair enough. How about a breakout player then? Have you had a breakout player in your team for this year?
In my team, my breakout player probably would have been George Hill, as mentioned, with the rationale for the young player. But I want to give this award from my side of things to a different player. I want to give it to Saif Saib, because he was the MVP for the whole tournament and previously probably wasn't looked at as a Red Bull dominant player. And so he's had a personal breakout season, I think, as well, and very well deserved the MVP award, and I think deserved breakout player and probably the player of the competition as well.
Yeah, he was a name on my list for the breakout player, and for those exact same reasons. But I wanted to give him the big one. So my breakout player, I'm going to talk about Rayan Ahmed, someone who's been given more responsibility this year for Leicestershire. We knew how talented he was. It's not like Rayan Ahmed wasn't unknown going into 2025, but Rayan Ahmed as a number 3 in first class cricket was a little bit of an unknown, and he's gone out there and scored hundreds upon hundreds for Leicestershire and has been absolutely phenomenal. And he must have been so close to jumping on that aeroplane down to Australia for the Ashes this winter. he has been superb. And you forget how young he is still. That still blows my mind, that every time you click on the profile on Cricinfo or one of the other stats site, you go, is he really only that old? And
Yeah.
it's so exciting to see what he has in the future.
Well, I remember when I first joined Leicester, I think it was 2020. Good story here actually is I did like a squad audit to start with, and I was like, well, we don't have a leggy. How does this? How do we change that? Do we need to recruit a leggy? And I remember Paul Nico says to me, "Don't worry about that. We've got Rayhan coming through. He'll be our leggy." And I think Rayhan was about 15 at the time. And Nico, I remember he was just so confident that Rayhan was going to be a superstar, and obviously he's been proven right. I've known Rayhan since his debut season, and fantastic talent, great guy as well. Loves the game, no fear. Just wants it really badly, and for me, really pleased about his breakthrough season too.
Yeah, likewise. Player of the competition for me, Dan, you've spoken about him already. It's Safe. Someone who's been in my team since day one. I did expect him to have a little bit more of a role with ball in hand. He didn't bowl as much as maybe I'd have thought. He still picked up some incredibly crucial points with the wickets, though. But what an absolute run machine he's turned into in 2025. 6 first-class hundreds, which is... I was looking through the statistics whilst I was on commentary the other day, and that's the most hundreds by a Northamptonshire player this millennium, I think, or this century. It's the first one since Mike Hussey, I think, got 6, or Lance Klusner way back in the early 2000s. 7 50s to go with it as well. And yeah, just a key part of my team, Dan. Key part of my team, so I couldn't not give him my player of the competition.
And coincidentally, a Northants player as well, so it's a win-win for you, isn't it?
Exactly. It makes it feel a little bit sweeter. Now, talking about someone who's generally always towards the top of the leaderboards, and Dan, that's not talking about you and I. We'll talk about our performances towards the end of this episode, but we're going to welcome in Sam Martin, who is a big Leicestershire fan. So I suspect, I don't know actually, will Sam still have a hangover from the champagne that he's popped during the course of the weekend or not? I'm not sure. But finished 32nd in the county championship, 43rd in the blast. Sam, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, very good. Post celebrations, obviously, but yeah, it's been brilliant from start to finish all season, really.
Yeah, they have been absolutely superb, Leicestershire. Who or what has been your standout moments as to what's caused this success for the team, or the domination, in fact?
I think it goes back a few years. To be fair, it's probably been coming. You sort of think back to the 2023 One Day Cup win, and probably since Sean Jarvis took over as CEO. Good recruitment, mixed with good young talent coming through. You look at you spoke about Rayhan, but then you got Josh Hall, Alex Green in the One Day Cup, but then that mixed with signings of players that, they've probably taken a chance on that other counties probably haven't, a Ben Cox and Ian Holland, even the likes of Budinger that was released from Notts, Patel that was sort of released from Essex. They've taken chances on players and probably got the recruitment really quite right. And then consistently they've not had. If you looked at the top wicket takers in the league, there's not really a Leicestershire player up there. If you look at top run scorers, again, Lewis Hill's Leicestershire's top run scorer. So they've all kind of chipped in, but I think that's probably testament to the squad and the vibes that they've built around the club, really.
Dan, does that back up an analyst mindset? Nobody really dominating the runs or the bowling charts, but everybody contributing. Is that the ideal situation?
I think probably you take either of the two approaches, but having consistent output from all players, and it's not just the 11 in the team; it's maybe 15 or 16 throughout the squad. Has been really important for Leicester, and we spoke earlier about their batting depth being a massive factor as well for them. I think that will, if they keep that similar approach in Div 1, that will definitely stand them in good stead in terms of making sure they get out games with draws rather than losses. And the recruitment side of things, obviously, I was at Leicester when Sean first started as CEO. And yeah, I just kind of echo what Sam said really about the positive impact that Sean's had over his 5 years at the club, and I think the club will miss him now. He's moving on, and yeah, we talked about the recruitment side of things with regards to identifying players at so-called bigger teams who weren't getting opportunities. Talked about the likes of Budinger, Rishi Patel, Tom Scriven, who had barely played for their so-called bigger counties, but were clearly good, talented cricketers who are outperforming everybody in the second 11, and it took a bit of a leap of faith to find these players, because Leicester had kind of traditionally gone down the sign a declining 35-year-old route rather than the 21-year-old who's not getting opportunities. And I think that sometimes with young players as well, it takes time to get them up to a level that they can really, really challenge at and feel bedded in county cricket. And I think Leicester have played the long game there pretty well, and that's worked out nicely for them.
Absolutely right. Well, Sam, you didn't quite finish top of the division like Leicestershire did, but 32nd is a phenomenal effort. How are you happy? Are you happy with 32nd, or do you feel you've left a little bit on the table there?
No, I think you have to be happy. There's definitely areas for improvement, but I would imagine that everyone would say the same thing. It's my best finish to date. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that one. It's yeah, going into the last week, I think I got up to about 15th in the last game week. I was like, oh, what's on the cards here? But then it fell away a little bit. So yeah, maybe slightly bittersweet, but I'd definitely have taken 32nd if you asked me in April time.
I think most of us would as well, Sam. To be fair, let's get to know how you go about building these teams, then, Sam, as well, and see if you and I, Dan, can learn anything from one of the experts. But what are your tactics when you put them together? Are you a spreadsheeter, Sam? I know Dan's a big fan of a spreadsheet, or are you a bit more of a vibes kind of pick player?
I think I'm less spreadsheety in the county championship. I probably am more so in the Blast, where you've got double and triple game weeks. And obviously, I come from a sort of fantasy football background, so I'm not adverse to that sort of stuff. I think in the county championship, I'm aiming for sort of multi-dimensional players. Like probably 1 to 11. I'd try and pick, people who are all capable of scoring runs. I don't like to pick batsmen that don't bowl, and just try and, in my mind, as a very broad look at it, it's maybe ever so slightly different to, from a fantasy football where you've got the top 20 players and they're kind of the ones that score. I think with, certainly with the county championship, there's such an array of options of players that you can have. I like to have players who all have the best possible chance of scoring on any given day. And I probably have, my starting 11 will be all 11 players who are capable of scoring really high scores. A likes of, I probably prioritise my sort of budget through the all rounders, and then try and be clever. Calvin Harrison is someone that I've had throughout a decent chunk of my side, and where it's so different to, I always kind of refer back to, like, from a fantasy football point of view, but because the deadline is post the squad's being announced, it gives you that much more flexibility that you can probably carry a player like that, knowing that it's very rare I don't tend to go too deep on my bench. I don't tend to waste too much money on it, because I kind of, as long as I'm able to be on my phone within the half an hour of the tosses and the teams and the deadline, and with having 2 free transfers a week, I tend to probably problem solve that and have a decent core, knowing that I've got the transfers up. If I really need to, I can just bring someone back. It's not too difficult to do that. I probably tend to not look too far in advance, because in terms of reliability, players getting random rest-ins, or there's a lot of stuff that's sometimes quite hard to predict. So I'll probably try not to be too long-term, a little bit more reactionary, and even to the point of, waiting for the tosses to decide who I'm going to captain, waiting, looking at weather forecasts to see okay, where do I want players. I'll probably try and go down that approach than being really too sort of analytical with it all.
I can see, Dan, you're frank to be taking notes. You just need to make sure those alarms work, don't you, for 10:30 in the morning, which scuppered you a couple of times.
Well, no, it wasn't the 10:30 alarms that scuppered me. It was the 10 o'clock alarm that I didn't realise that the games are starting at 10:30. That was my issue later on in the season. Yeah, that's the issue.
And then with Sam, with that kind of tactic that you've just spoken through, are you looking for players? Obviously, you're looking for those players. Are you looking for players that kind of stand out that aren't being picked at the same time as well, or not, to create a bit of difference? Or are you quite happy to just stick with your tactic there? And if they turn out to be a Kyle Abbott who's owned by 40% of the other teams, then so be it.
Yeah, I don't really mind having template picks, to be brutally honest. I think there's that many people that go down different options. I think towards the end of the season that the players will establish themselves as good picks. Will be the good picks. I try and get in early. I had George Hill from the start of the season, and that's just luck that his season goes the way it does. So I was lucky in that aspect, but I think I try and pick quite a template side to an extent, and they just kind of become set and forget players. George Hill's been there from the start. He's just one player that I don't have to think about throughout the season. And the same. England selection aside, I had Liam Dawson in for a long period. And like a Calvin Harrison who's been there, and then the ability is if you carry this. We've been lucky this year. I've had a Ben Callaway a lot, so he's someone that can sit on the bench because he's not costing a lot. And realistically, it was been a case of, right, is Harrison playing? He's not. Okay, well, I'll shuffle a little bit around. Callaway can come in and everything can move around. And probably, again, I probably only have maybe one playing bench player, because that's all I really need. Obviously, if something goes really wrong, you might have to make a couple of penalty transfers. But throughout the course of the season, I'll probably get away with it more than it would hinder me by having lots of money on the bench. So yeah, I'm pretty happy going template, and in the knowledge that there are that many good scoring options. There'll be a lot of mix, across the 11 players.
Yeah, and then who's been your standout for the season? Who's been your player pick, and who wore your captain's armband?
Standout player, there's a slight Leicestershire bias. Ian Holland would be one of them. Again, I'm quite lucky from a Leicestershire point of view. It works when it works. It doesn't work when it doesn't work. I was on Holland like early doors, pretty much from the moment Rishi got injured. And then Holland opened the batting, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll have a bit of this. And that's through nothing more than what I was going back to the beginning. Like, I probably care less about form and what they're doing, and more about just getting people in the right positions to have someone who's opened the batting, opened the bowling, and a decent fielder. I don't really care too much about what they are as an individual, because if you put them in the right sort of space, then you'll, in theory, providing that they, all of these lads are good cricketers. So from my point of view, I want someone who's batting as much as possible and bowling as many overs as possible. And so that's from a Holland point of view. And then George Hill would be the other one, yeah, as a non-Leicestershire pick. I had him from the beginning. To be fair, I've had him a couple of years. I genuinely think he's a brilliant cricketer. But yeah, he's been superb.
Happy days. And then finally, just a couple of questions. A bit of make us at the Cricket Draft feel warm and fuzzy. But what's your favourite thing about the game?
I've probably got two answers to this. One is a genuine interest in county cricket. I've always been interested in county cricket, but it gives you that little bit more, especially with the streams that the counties offer. If you went back 4 years, 5 years, I wouldn't find myself watching Worcestershire versus Northamptonshire or whatever. So that is certainly one of them, and the other one more so this season. As the game grows, there's genuinely become a community. And it's brilliant to be part of. And that comes from someone who's part of the sort of FPL, the fantasy football community, which is massive. And like I've genuinely met like friends through that, and people that I'm really quite close to, and this feels for me like it's going down the same way. And that one is probably the most important one, because that it's brilliant that so many people sharing sort of a common love of the sport, a love of the game, but also a love of the fantasy side of things. And yeah, it's the ability to sort of combine everything. Yeah, I love it. To be fair, I've played it a few years. This year's probably been the year where I've taken it the most serious, and I've probably enjoyed it more so. So that's got to be testament to the fact that A, it's a good game, but B, there's a decent group of people that are playing it.
Happy days. And finally, 30 seconds in the league. I don't think you're going to, but are you going to do anything different next year?
Well, to be fair, I probably will. The things where I've ever so slightly came a little bit unstuck, obviously being quite reactionary, and that has probably worked for the most part. But I just think with like double captain, 12th man, going forward, I probably need a proper plan in place. And it was kind of a case of, like it's a lot easier with the blast game, because you kind of like you earmark, okay, I'm looking at a triple game week here, and that's when I'm going to do it. Whereas with the championship game, you're nervous about squads and stuff, weather forecasts, and getting a bad double captain or something. So yeah, going forward, I will probably try and earmark when I'm going to do that. Maybe the two spinners in the heat of summer, or something along those lines. But yeah, that would probably be the one thing where I would look.
Well, a lot to learn. Sam, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on what's been a good season for you in the cricket draft. And maybe we'll have to get you back on ahead of the 2026 season and see if you can teach Dan and I a few things in building these squads up, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be the other way around, but no, thank you for having me. Keep up the good work.
Cheers, Sam. Take care. Right, Dan, the top 10 overall, something that, well, you and I don't need to worry about at all, do we? But the top 10 started over 25,000 points, Dan. 25,000 points, and that was Adam Dickinson in 10th place. George Butler, Daniel Botton, Tom Howes, and Sam Boo Boo, which I'm sure is probably the actual surname, round out the 6th through 10. Then in the top 5, Ben Sanders and the Yorkshire Puddings, Tom Partis finishing 4th, Alex W. and the Rotherham Rejects with 26,176 points. In 3rd place, taking bronze, Hacks BCC, Liam Holmes, 26,409 in 2nd place. And Andrew Douglas, a man that I think we've spoken a lot about on this show, finishing top of the table with the trophy, 26,773 points in 2025. And I can see by the expression on your face, Dan, it's nothing but admiration.
Absolutely, and Andrew Douglas's Sancho Otters are more successful than the footballer that he's probably named his team after at this point in time. Fantastic work. Even with the top, the 3 of the other top 4, the 3 players below him, making up points on him in this game, last game week, he was still far and away the leader with almost a 400-point cushion.
How did you get on?
Well, Dan, you beat me. I
was thinking more overall, Dan. I was thinking more in your overall position, your total number of points. But yes, Dan.
I was
I did beat you this year in our mini league.
1,172nd overall, and that got me a total. I'm trying to think now. I'm just trying to get it now. Total of. And I've noticed a trend. Basically, is my point that I've been looking through these stats to see a trend, and I've clearly got one. And I've been doing pretty well in the T20 tournaments. So 145th in the Blast, this year for the men's, 205th for the women's, and 175th in the Big Bash over the winter.
Yeah.
And then outside the top 1,000 in the longer formats. So I don't know what that tells you. I think I probably need more spreadsheets, is what I'm saying, over the in terms of the longer formats, and probably a little bit of work required there for longer formats rather than T20, where I feel like I'm on the cusp of breaking into the top 100, hopefully on a consistent basis.
Yeah, just a classic modern day cricketer, aren't you? Just chasing those white ball paychecks, Dan. That's what it is. You need more purity in your cricket fandom. I actually did all right. I finished in the top 200, Dan. In the end, I finished 197th.
Are you the opposite of me, by the way?
I think I might be, yeah, because I stink, don't I, in the T20 stuff. 23,740 points across the course of it. Yes, I did beat you. And I think I beat you by a decent distance in the end.
A couple thousand, I think it was.
Yeah, by 2,000 points, which I suppose kind of leads quite nicely into the next question. But I'll ask you first. What was your biggest mistake this year through this season?
County Championship, my biggest mistake. Well, we know about the 10:30 start alarm clock that was disaster. But I think overall, it's a bigger point than that. I mean, that 1 week wouldn't have pushed me down that far. So I think for me, I'm really data oriented generally, but I wasn't really. I was more vibes based for this county championship, and I think probably I need to stick to what I'm good at. So it won't be long before the spreadsheets are dusted off and the model building starts for next year potentially. So I feel like the tournaments where I've put more of a data heavy approach in have yielded better results. So I think that's probably my biggest mistake and takeaway through the season.
Yeah, I suppose the other thing that makes that such a big challenge for the Red Bull format in the UK compared to those T20 leagues is just the length of time that they span. You can put together a spreadsheet for a tournament that maybe lasts 6 weeks, but to put together a spreadsheet for a tournament that lasts 5.5, 6 months is a whole different ball game, isn't it? But yeah. I think the thing that I missed out on a lot, and it's something that Sam was talking about, I kind of put myself down a hole of picking players that ended up specialising in one thing rather than another, which I don't necessarily think is a terrible thing to do. But like Wayne Madsen, fantastic, scored a hatful of runs, and he's not the guy to complain about. But pretty unlikely he's going to go on and take a fifer like a Dan Lawrence might do. He's probably a bad example to choose from there.
I know what you mean in terms of the ceilings of players.
Yeah.
I think Sam mentioned it, didn't he, about the potential of players to score massive points. I see what you mean in that respect for sure.
I think it's probably it. And I have a horrible memory, Dan, that I tipped Tom Taylor at the start of the year for being an absolute, just a great pick, a bargain pick, and a miscategorized pick as well. And then I didn't pick him. So that maybe Tom Taylor's my biggest mistake through the course of the 2025 season. I should have just picked who I wanted to pick in the first place. But we'll finish with a positive. Who's been your most successful pick? Who's the pick that you've enjoyed the most through the course of the year? It's probably going to be George Hill, isn't it?
100%, yeah. For the reasons that I said a lot earlier in the show, good value. Feel like I was on the George Hill train pretty early, and he was just one of the players that seemed to be consistently high point scorer for my team week in, week out, and would contribute consistently usually with ball, but sometimes with bat too. And fair play to George Hill for this, and he's definitely my favourite pick for my team.
Yeah, he's been superb. I can't really look. Well, to be fair, I've got a few. I've had James Coles for a long time. I've had John Simpson all year, but Saif Zaid by far and away. Not only have I had the pleasure of watching and commentating on some of those innings personally, which has been superb, but knowing that all of those moments have been contributing to my ability to beat you this year, Dan, in the championship has been ever so sweeter. It's just sweetened the deal slightly. So yeah, it has to be Saif Zaid. There's obviously mentions for others there. Justin Broad had a fantastic year, although he was kind of in and out of my side. But yeah, let us know if you've watched this far through. Let us know how you finished off this year. Let us know who your player of the year was. Finally, as well, Dan,
you're almost Saif's points ahead of me for the tournament, so you can say that he directly contributed to your beating me in this comp.
Yeah, does he make your team in 26, Dan? That's the question. That is the question. Yeah, exactly. We'll see the questions first, the prices first. But anyway, Dan, thank you so much for your time across the course of this season. It's been really, really good fun to make this content with you. And we both hope that people that have watched it have really enjoyed it. Yes, okay, fine. Dan finished outside the top 1,000. Yes, okay, I finished just inside the top 200. Maybe we're not the experts that you should be listening to, but we hope that we've given you some nuggets of information, or at least some questions to pose and think about when you're selecting your sides. And just finishing off, keep your eye out on social media. Make sure you're following the Cricket Draft. See if there's any games coming up for the Ashes, for the Big Bash, and some other social content through the course of the winter as well. But Dan, thank you very much for 2025.
Been a pleasure, mate. Absolutely loved it.